Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here is your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning, and thanks for joining us for another Sunday morning of Faith in Our Hometown. I'm always amazed that you take part of your Sunday morning, and some of you choose to spend it with me here in TV land. And so I'm grateful because I do think that we're making a difference here in our Joplin area, and we want to continue to make a difference in our ability to talk to one another, and our ability to care for each other, and our ability to stretch ourselves a little bit in some of our thinking about some of the things that really we need to stretch ourselves in. And one of those areas is helping us figure out how to continue to bridge the gap between the different races that we have here. I keep reading all kinds of wonderful things, and more genetically, we're finding out more and more that there really is only one race, and it's the human one, and all the rest of it are just a couple little chromosome markers here and there. But we've had issues about that, and several years ago, we came to a clash when there was a lynching here in Joplin, and we haven't talked about it much, so I want to talk about it a little bit this morning. My guest is going to be Nanda, Nunnely Sparks, and we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute, so stick around and we're going to talk a little bit about some of our unpleasant Joplin history.
I was in shock, and in denial, and I couldn't believe it was me. I was healthy, feeling well, but unbeknownst to me, after the colonoscopy, I found out that I had colon cancer. My name is Mario Guerrero. I'm an ethicist. I help people that are in a hospital and the medical staff process some of the difficult situations. In this case, it was the other way around.
Well, I'm glad they caught it earlier.
On my 50th birthday, I had a regular checkup. I wasn't concerned because I felt well. No family history of this type of cancer, and yet I developed this type of cancer. During the process of the colonoscopy, they were able to remove that polyp. And having that done within the hospital setting, they can just address all the issues right there and then. I'm a great believer in early detection. This is such a silent disease, and you really don't necessarily have symptoms. Go get checked. Follow up with your physician. Don't wait.
Well, again, thanks for joining us for another Sunday morning here in Faith in Our Hometown. My guest this morning, Nanda Nunnely Sparks. Nanda, it's good to see you. It's been a while since we've talked. So I wanted to talk this morning a little. So first, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I want to talk this morning about the lynching that occurred in 1903. I know recently you've done just a little observance of that, 115 years since that happened. So say a little bit about yourself and then why you thought it was important to again, just bring this issue up again.
I am an educator, and I also do historical presentations. And so as a history buff, I learned about this lynching when I was about 25 years old through research on the lynching that happened in Springfield. But recently, the Equal Justice Initiative has decided to go around to all the different places that lynchings happened and collect soil and take that soil down to a new memorial that is opened outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in order to pay homage to the souls that were taken on, unjustly through lynchings. And so we had a memorial service for the lynching that happened here in Joplin for Thomas Gilliard. It was, several people of faith that spoke. It was a nice gathering. We had about 50 people. It could have been bigger, but it was nice.
Well, I'm hoping we're reaching more than 50 this morning too, because again, I just think it's important for us to talk about it. So that occurred, around 4th Street and
Second and Wall.
Second and Wall. That's right. Yeah. And Thomas Gilliard was the man's name who was lynched. Give us a little background here.
Earlier that day, there was a store owner that claimed 2 African Americans had come into the store and 2 guns went missing. And so an officer, Leslie, one of the Joplin police officers, went to look to see if he could find the people that had stolen these guns. He went down to the train yards and was searching some trains, went into a train, and at that point in time, the only people that know what really happened were basically the people that were in the train itself. But somehow or other, there was a struggle, there was a shot that went off, there was another shot, Officer Lindsay was killed, and at that time, the other people that were on the train fled, one of which was the shooter, one of which was Thomas Gilliard. And anyways, Thomas Gilliard was found several hours later with a bullet wound in his leg. And so people thought that that meant that he was guilty. There were also 2 other men that were on the train itself that claimed he didn't do it. There was another eyewitness there that claimed he didn't do it. But when he was put into the jail, members of our community produced a battering ram, knocked the wall of the jail down, took him out, and took him about 2.5 blocks to the spot there on 2nd and Wall and hung him. There were many members of our community that stood up and tried to convince them to not do it, including our city attorney at the time, Pearl Decker, the mayor pro tem with the last name of Cunningham, the same man that we know, the Cunningham Park.
Sure.
The mayor at the time also, Trigg was his name, he also asked that they not do this. Many people struggled. In fact, at the very last, before he was hoisted in the air, the Globe writes about that it was like a tug of war. There were people tugging on the rope one direction and there were people tugging on the rope the other direction.
Wow, what a metaphor for life
yes,
that is. Oh.
Yes. And during all of this, Thomas Gilliard maintained his innocence and actually begged for his life, begged that they would contact his mother and father. It was, just horrific to think about. But what happened after, I think, is really the most, I mean, of course, losing a life is terrible,
sure,
but what happened afterwards was that after the body was hung, after he was hung, members of the community went through and burned down parts of the Black community in Joplin and ran people out of the community. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think has really caused a ripple effect within the community for years after. At that time, it wasn't just Easttown that was, the Black part of the community. There were Blacks living on North Main, there were Blacks living on East 7th Street, and these mobs went from area to area, burning down homes, running people out, threatening people's lives. Many people ended up in Webb City and Carthage and Pittsburgh and Galena, all over the place, because they basically had to run for their life.
Joplin now.
Right,
yeah.
right.
I lived in Springfield. Was the first place I was ordained. I worked after I was ordained, mm-hmm. and here, and it was interesting. I learned about that. The lynching had happened in Springfield as well, mm-hmm. and again, it was one of those things I didn't know that we'd had one as well. Right. In that same era. Mm-hmm. Certainly, St. Peter's was young at the time. We got started, and of course, all the downtown churches got started at the very end of the 19th century, so the late 1800s. But just at the beginning of that new century. Our new church wasn't even built yet. We were in the first brick church building that we had, right. And again, very near to 8th and Pearl, but not in the current location. Mm-hmm. And I just think about all that history and all the different ways that life unfolded because of just this horrible event that kind of ripped the community apart. Because I'd always ask the question, it's just like, because I didn't see a large. Now, Catholics are not traditionally, made up. Our communities are not largely African American. They're very much a minority among Catholic churches just across the United States in general. Right. Of course, in areas where we got a higher African American population, we got a higher percentage. But here, none. Springfield, very little. I mean, so few people, and when I started asking that question, a lot of people would talk about that there was more of a presence until after the lynchings, when so many people didn't feel it was safe to be around. Right. And so, how that affected our history. I mean, it just strikes me as profoundly sad. Yeah. So much so that every time I drive by now, that area as I'm driving down Wall, because a lot of times I'll do that to get to the, to cut through, to the university or go walk or those kinds of things. Every time I go by that corner now, I'm just kind of like, I just say a little prayer, saying, what is it going to take to eventually heal us? What's it going to take to, because we can't go back and undo it.
Right. I think talking about it really helps. After the tornado happened, so many of us were affected. That was a huge event. And so many of us were affected. If you can imagine not being able to talk about that And that's what happened after this lynching. People weren't able to talk about it. It was tried to be hushed up because people were so ashamed. And for the black community to not be able to talk about it, and for the white community to not be able to talk about it, that has caused ripples.
Different scars,
yeah.
but still scars on
Yeah.
everybody's part.
Yes, yeah. And another thing that I find very interesting is that it wasn't just Joplin. You talked about Springfield, but the lynching started in Southwest Missouri. There was a lynching in Monette in 1894. There was a lynching in Pierce City, and a purging of the black community. They ran every single person out of Pierce City in 1901. Then there was a lynching in Joplin in 1903. They tried to do the same thing. And then there was the lynching in Springfield in 1906.
Yeah.
So, you know, it went, you know, there are several different places, and basically the same type of thing happened. There was the lynching and then a purging. And so you're very right. The African American community had been much larger, and then it went down to almost, you know, nothing.
Yeah.
So.
And again, it's you know, I don't. There's no. I'm not hearing anger or finger pointing or blame. I'm not hearing any of those things. But I hear sadness.
Mm-hmm.
I hear regret. I hope you can hear some sadness and regret on my part, because I'm a member of the quote ruling class, if you will, and it just makes me sad.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't know that any of our parishioners back in that day. I have no idea where any of them whether they were involved. I hope they weren't, but I know human nature, and I know sometimes fear and reactions and all that stuff sometimes create these horrible, hostile environments that just are so toxic to everybody in a given area. When I was talking with about this issue with one of my parishioners, and I just said, probably none of us went, because I just tried to see whether anybody. I do know. I take that back. I do know one of St. Peter's parishioner who did go. And so she was the one that I just said, well, how was the event and all those things? But I said, did you see anybody else from St. Peter's there? And the answer was no. And I'm like, what do we do? How do we help people to talk about it? But one of my parishioners said to me, he said, Father, I think it's important, but he said, just be gentle, because he said, I feel bad, and that's probably enough, but I don't want to be beat up over it. And I'm like, and I heard exactly what he was saying. I mean, this gentleman's in his 80s, love him to death, good man, good soul, good heart, and he just, he feels pain, but doesn't even know what to do with it, doesn't know what to say about it, doesn't know who to, and in some ways, if we even had more, those are occasions where somebody along the way needs to say, I wasn't there and I didn't do it, but I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just wish I could erase it. I wish I could make it not happen, not have happened.
Right.
But we've got to continue to do more. I think you're right about talking about it and trying to figure out what else we can do to foster the communication and the understanding. Not to beat anybody up, but to just say, this is part of our history and we still aren't over it. I mean, this is 115 years later and we're still not. I don't think we've healed from it yet.
No.
So my guest this morning is Nanda Nunnely Sparks, and we're talking a little bit about the 1903 lynching here in Joplin. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and what we can maybe do to put the pieces back together if we can. This is Faith in Our Hometown. Come back after a quick break, okay? Fill up your coffee cup and come back.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Again, so thanks for joining us after a quick break. My guest this morning, Nanda Nunnely Sparks. Nanda was one of the organizers of the commemoration and just recalling to mind the bad memory of the lynching here in Joplin in 1903. And again, you were helping fill me in on some more of the the whole issue and the whole territory. I mean, I've never lived in Mona, I've never lived in Pierce City, so I haven't had to confront those the same way that I had to confront Springfield when I lived here and that I've had to confront here now. And I didn't even know about this, I mean, until a few, several weeks ago or months ago now, when the commemoration was held. And again, people say, well, what's the point in digging all that stuff up? Okay, from my vantage point, the point in digging it all up is, I just think we've got to be aware of our past and recognize why sometimes we struggle.
Yeah. I think it's important that people understand just because something is a little bit uncomfortable doesn't mean that it can't be breached. Sometimes you have to go through a little bit of being uncomfortable in order to grow. We all know that, One of the things I think that people struggle with is this idea of the privilege of being a white person over a black person. But there's all kinds of privilege. There's privilege in having an education. There's privilege in having, 2 parents in a home. There's a privilege of living in a small town versus living in the middle of a city. There's all types of privilege. It's what we do with that privilege, I think, that matters. And I am a firm believer that our Lord Jesus Christ showed the ultimate privilege, using his privilege. He was the Son of God.
Yeah.
He had the privilege of being the Son of God, and he shared that privilege with us.
Yeah.
And so I think that lets us understand how we should use our privilege in order to help others, And just talking about this, I think, can help others by letting people know this happened. It's something that was terrible. It happened. It's a stain. But sometimes you've got to clean that mirror off, and you've got to look in that mirror and identify all of the. That's what helps us heal, not by being silent, by talking about it.
Well, and that's again one of the reasons why I want to talk, because I thought, well, 50 people, that's not enough. One little article in the Globe, it's not enough. We just got to talk about some of that stuff. We just gotta raise the awareness, because again, I just, I want to pray every time I go by that spot. I want to pray when I go by that corner.
As we should.
And just say, God, whatever you still need us to heal from, just help us to heal.
Yeah.
But this was one of those moments that was not good.
Right.
This just wasn't good.
I found out today, I didn't know myself, and I've read so much about Thomas Gilliard. Thomas Gilliard is buried here. Out at the Fairview Cemetery, and he has no marker.
Really? None at all?
No, none at all. And I just thought about that. People say, well, was he guilty? Was he not guilty? It really doesn't matter to me whether he was guilty or not. The fact that he didn't have justice is the main, that's what the main concern was. And to think that, he has been there all of this time with no marker whatsoever. One of the last things that he said before they hung him, he pleaded with them, to contact his mother and his father. So he had a mother and father. He was a real person.
A human being. Yeah.
And so I don't know, that affected me, learning that he had was buried here and still has no marker 115 years later. So interesting.
Yeah. And again, it's. Everybody deserves to have a story, and everybody deserves to have counted, and I just, again, I think on that, and I think about, it's tragic, the person that was shot, the officer that was killed. I mean, but I hope for his sake, he was remembered, and he was honored, and for his service to the community as an officer, for all those things, and again, whether Thomas Gilliard was the one that did that. What was his name again? What was the officer's name?
Theodore Leslie.
Theodore Leslie. Okay, so I just want to make sure we honor Theodore Leslie today, and that we honor Thomas Gilliard today too, for the same reasons. It's just like they were human beings; their lives mattered, and it does.
Yes.
I mean, it's important. And again, we'll never know at this point in time, because there was never a trial. There was never, and I hope we've all figured this out by now. I mean, I've been around long enough. I'm 57 now, so I'm around long enough to know that we sometimes do not know the whole truth about anything, or about much,
Right.
But, but it's still just sad to me and it makes me even more profoundly sad. See, you're making me sad on a Sunday morning. But anyway, it makes me even profoundly sad that there's no marker out there. So if there's a movement to do that, you let me know. Call me.
Okay.
You can count on me for a little.
Will.
I can do that because I just
will.
yeah. Because I do think we just got to figure out how to live as people in this community who care about what happens to each other. And again, there's so many things that we're finding out about how we just naturally relate to each other as people of different skin colors. You know, that they've done so many studies now, and anytime anybody sees somebody of difference, you're naturally gonna, and it's natural. It's like some of that's not prejudice. It's not. It's just a natural reaction that we respond more affinitively to the people who look at us and look like us and sound like us and all those kind of good things. But it takes continual work.
Yes.
For all of us.
Yes.
To be able to reach across some of those barriers, to notice and to have the same kind of compassion for the people who don't look like us.
Right.
And we don't even, they're now proving this, they're proving this in scientific studies that measure, you know, the way the brain lights up and all those things about those things. And again, you know, we can all work on it,
Yes.
but of course, it's natural for us to automatically have our brains light up more for the person that we automatically assume is one of us. And they've done these studies even in terms of, for 15 minutes, putting people in the same uniforms or making teams. And when they'll do this and they'll start talking about a member of the other team, again, our brains light up when we put this person on our team, and our brains don't light up when we put the person on the other team.
Right.
And these are, I mean, National Geographic, probably 4 months ago, amazing stories on race and upon genetics and skin color and all this stuff. And I was like, whoa. I mean, just making me think about stuff that, you know, I know everybody's my brother and sister, but I get fascinated now by the genetics, when the genetics are simply chromosomal markers that go on or off depending, and the rest of it genetically is all the same.
Right.
There is only one race,
That's
and
right.
it's human.
Yes.
You know, and we haven't figured out how to do this yet. After
Right.
all these years, we
Right.
still haven't figured out how to do this.
Right.
And we can't quit trying until we
Yes.
make some more progress, or
Yes.
until we get some of it righter, because we're still not. It's still not right.
Yeah.
We're just not doing it well all the time.
I tell people, if you look around at your circle of friends or in your, you know, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and you see everyone that looks just exactly like you, you've got work to do, because we have to branch out. Again, making ourselves a little bit uncomfortable is a way of growing. It's a way of learning about others and moving into that place where we are a better community. So thinking about others.
I just laugh. I mean, I laugh sometimes when my students will like start playing certain music, and I'm just like, my initial reaction is like, I want to shut that down. I don't want to like it. I don't want to listen to it. I don't wanna do that. And then I keep saying to myself, just like, okay, no. Ask some questions. Why do you like this music?
Yes.
What's the deal?
What are
Why
they
do you
saying?
like this? What are they saying? Why do you want to? What is this all about? And I'm always fascinated sometimes with, because again, it doesn't even really matter the music. It doesn't matter, but it's again the way folks identify, or they resonate with something, or they want to, they claim it. And when that happens, to me, it's always fascinating, because I can find things to resonate with them. You know.
Yes.
And if they let me, then I can say, okay, let me play you one of mine. And
Right.
we go back and
Connection.
forth, and it's just like, you know,
Making
I do
that
that when I
connection.
take my students on road trips, you know.
Yes.
And I used to say, all right, you get to play, and this is dating me, you get to play a tape, and then I'll play a tape. You know, this even back before CDs. But I mean, but that's how we made the connections.
Yeah, conversations, making
Yeah.
conversation,
Yeah.
and that's part of this what the Equal Justice Initiative is trying to do, going around, is to make those conversations. Some of those, they're hard conversations, but they're conversations that need to be done, just to know what has actually happened within your community.
Yeah, and again, I think we're pretty blessed here in the Joplin. I've had other guests on, you know, talking to other folks, and again, we don't have a major problem here, you know, and I want to acknowledge that we don't have a major we don't have major race problems here. But for us to say that we've really worked through it all, or that we don't still have some ugly moments of prejudice
Right.
Among us, that would be an overstatement.
Yeah.
Because they happen.
Yeah.
And everyone, and when they do, it's like I've had other guests on the last few weeks talking about when we see this stuff happen and we just can't stay quiet.
Yes.
We have to at least step forward and say, no, we can be better people.
Yes.
We can encourage each other to be better people.
Yeah.
You know, you're putting me in a box, or, you know, I'm sorry, but what you just said didn't sound like you cared, or, you know, what is that? And how do we do that? How do we do that with our kids? You know, how do we do that with our kids?
If I can put a bright spot, I spent the day today with some 8th graders that are making a documentary about the Thomas Gilliard lynching.
Wonderful.
And they're exploring all of the different things that happened. And it's amazing to me. Our kids really know better how to do it than we do as adults.
As long as we don't poison them along the way, we're pretty good, because they don't come out, you know, they don't come out thinking goofy things. If they learn how to think goofy things over the course of time. If we leave them alone, I mean, I love my little school over in Carthage at St. Anne's. That's the only place where nobody cares what color your skin is. Those kids don't care. They've been with each other for so long. They just do it, you know? And it's the only place, fully integrated, everybody works with each other, nobody pays much attention to it. It's the only spot. I mean, you know, and the rest of us keep trying. We haven't made it completely yet, but we keep trying. We just keep trying to be with each other and to make a difference. So my guest this morning has been Nanda Nunnely Sparks, and just having a gentle conversation about how we might be able to do this better in terms of our race relations. Okay? We'll be right back after this Mercy Minute. Don't go away.
When they discovered there was no hospital, the Sisters of Mercy built one, as they had so many times before, offering healing and hope on the edge of the frontier. Mercy continues to answer the same call to bring care wherever you or your child need it most. Mercy, in every era, your life is our life's work. Learn why we serve at mercy.net/legacy. In Ireland, the first Sisters of Mercy were called the Walking Sisters because every day they went out in search of women and children who needed healing or help. Mercy continues to answer the same call, dedicated to the health of every woman who comes to us for care. Mercy, in every era, your life is our life's work. Learn why we serve at mercy.net/legacy.
Well, again, thanks for joining us for another Sunday morning for Faith in Our Hometown. One of the reasons why we do this show is so that we can talk to people who aren't just like us. If I only hung around with Catholics in this town, I wouldn't have many friends, okay? Because there just aren't that many of us. I think we got to learn how to talk to each other. Different Christians need to learn to talk to each other. Different people of different skin colors need to talk to each other. Different people of different backgrounds need to learn how to talk to each other. Because when we talk to each other, we can find ways of connecting. We need to find ways of caring. Back in 1903, we had a horrible incident here in our town. We had a lynching. And certainly that was a moment of injustice that colors our history, and that makes it difficult sometimes for us to relate. But we've had a gentle conversation about that this morning. We've got to learn how to care. We've got to learn how to reach out for one another. We've got to learn how to reach across barriers so that we can do that. Thanks for joining us this week, and join us again next week for Faith in Our Hometown. God bless you, and have a great Sunday.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.